Welcome back to the Throttle Up Podcast. Of course, we are back again. This is Lucas Handley. If you are a racer in Missouri, you've definitely seen this guy at least once or twice in the pits, either with Tony Jackson, Chrissy Wallace, a bunch of other racers, so Brendan Willard as well. But yeah, so you're kind of an interesting person to talk to because you've been in racing quite a while. But yeah, what got you into racing in the first place?
Well, I got into racing. I didn't really have a choice. It started um, probably before I was even born. My parents were involved um, with Bradley, Brennan's dad. Got into racing. They were just happened to be at the track one night, and Bradley had a flat, and my dad changed it. Had nothing to do with him at that point in time. Changed it before his guys got down, and he was already driving away. And Bradley was like, "Hey, do you want to come help all the time?" And so that's how it began.
There you go. So your dad got into racing. Wh did your dad start racing? What was his career like in racing?
So he mainly just was on the working on the cars, and that was up until I don't remember exactly when Bradley had his wreck at Bolivar, but Bradley broke his neck racing, and I was actually at Brennan's house that night. Um, so me and Brennan stayed with my mom while Bradley and Sandy and Dad went to the hospital to be with Bradley, and they got that sorted out. And we woke up the next morning and couldn't figure out why nobody was around, and went outside and looked at the absolutely destroyed race car. So that's one of my. But after Bradley got hurt, Bradley's dad, Bill, who started I-44 Speedway,
Yeah.
asked him if he wanted to work at the track, and from then on, they were that place like glue.
Yeah. And so your dad did tech officialing, or was a tech man at I-44, is that
Started
correct?
out as the tech guy, and
Yeah.
then somewhere along the way, basically took over all of the race day portion of the racetrack.
Okay.
So they were like co-general managers. So mom took care of everything that had to do with the fans, the concession stand, timing and scoring, all that stuff. And then dad was over all the race day operations as far as tech, on-track activities, making sure that everybody had what they needed to perform their job.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And what years did he do that from?
I'm gonna guess it was probably the late 90s or the early 90s, maybe even 89, 90. I want to say that Bradley got hurt in like 89,
Okay.
roughly. So, and then all the way up until Bill passed away, I think in 2002, they kind of took a little step back. And then Harold Armstrong actually ran the racetrack for a couple of years before he started Midway Speedway, um, over just the other side of town
Okay.
on dirt. So,
Yeah.
and then it kind of I think it set date vacant for a little while. And then Randy Mooneyham put dirt on it. Him and Bill put
Yeah.
dirt on it in like 2003, 2004,
Yeah.
somewhere in there.
Yeah. So, your dad, Bruce, pretty much was there from, well, you said 89 to early 2000. So,
Yep.
pretty much the heyday of I-44
All of it.
Speedway. Yeah.
Yep.
Because that's when Phillips was racing. That's
Yep.
when,
That's when
um,
Phillips and Carl Edwards and Jamie
yeah,
McMurray and there's so many of the guys, and if you look back even just a few years ago, um, like
yeah,
when Brian and Tim Swearingen and Steve Holt, the Eisenhowers, all those guys raced back in the heyday.
yeah. So, And that just shows like that we were talking about before we got on just the history of I-44 Speedway. Um, that you had, I mean, Tim Swearingen racing
Yeah.
back then, racing against Larry Phillips and two Hall of Famers, two Ultimate Hall of Famers. Actually, Rusty Wallace, isn't he Hall of Famer? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you had, I mean, Rusty, I don't know when he went to NASCAR stuff, but it was probably he probably did a little
He was
I-44.
already there,
Yeah.
but he did race at the fairgrounds in Springfield some
Yeah.
whenever that
Okay.
was going in the early, probably the early 80s.
Yeah. So you got the Wallace brothers that came through. I mean, some of the Wallace brothers, but you got some of the Wallace brothers, you got Phillips, all those guys. So big Hall of Fame NASCAR guys, and you have Jamie McMurray, all these people. And also, if you go to an asphalt track or you are at an asphalt track, you're going to have NASCAR guys come by. So
Hmm.
huge history with I-44. Um, but then you got into racing in the early 2000s. When did you start dipping your toes into the racing scene and ultimately racing?
So after mom and dad kind of took a break from it, I kind of got involved helping just a family friend, Randy Berry, with his street stock on dirt, and I didn't really like dirt racing. It was definitely a something I grew to like.
Hmm.
But I helped him a little bit. Um, in probably about 2003, 2004, whenever that transition went to dirt. Brennan actually conned me into going to the first World of Outlaw race at I-44. He's
Yeah.
like, you have to go. It's going to be the biggest race. He's like, it'll be the best night at I-44 since the Race of Champions. And anybody that remembers that, whenever we had Dale Earnhardt and Harry Gant and Rusty Wallace and Michael Waltrip and Kenny Wallace, and I don't know, there was probably 8 or 10 of them. Um, and it's the only time outside of the World of Outlaw race that I've seen the place 100% packed out. Like they would not sell any more tickets.
Yeah.
But Brennan called me into going to that first Outlaw race, and it was way different than my past experience with dirt. I went to the one night we got rained out at I-44, so a whole bunch of us loaded up in a big vehicle and drove to West Plains and watched one of the Show Me 100s, and it was absolutely miserable. It was just a bad night for dirt racing. Like you
Yeah.
couldn't see the front straightaway. Like I can't even remember who won. It was like I think it was either Terry Phillips or Scott Bloomquist, but like it
Yeah.
was miserable.
Checks
I
out.
hated it. I said I'm never going again. And then Brennan's like, "You got to go. This is going to be so cool." And now here we are. I like dirt just as much as I like asphalt.
Yeah, I feel I kind of relate to that because I didn't really get into dirt racing until like I-44 closed down, and it was like, well, I still want to go racing, so
Yeah.
better put my Hornet car on dirt and figure out what I'm going to do. So,
Yep.
um, but yeah, so you in 2004 you went to outlaw races and all that kind of stuff. So you started racing street stocks on dirt, is that correct?
Yep. So I helped him for a couple years, and he had whenever he was really in the heyday of his racing, he bought a second car. And towards the end of one of the seasons, I don't remember if it was 2004 or five, I don't remember exactly, but he's like he had one of his cousins racing it, and they didn't do very well. And he's like, "You want to give it a whirl?" I'm like, "I'll try. Can't do
Yeah.
any worse." And so we pulled it in the shop and we started working on it, and that's really kind of when I got my hands really dirty.
Yeah.
I helped him do whatever, but I wasn't really invested because um, it was for him and he already knew what he wanted, and we were trying to figure this car out why it was so bad. So we got to measuring and pulling strings and kind of really got down in the weeds of it and found a few things, and it was way better whenever I got the chance to race it. So when I raced that
Yeah.
a couple times, and then he started kind of slowing down. The rules were kind of changing. That was back when the factory stocks were the old Lee Spring Camaros and all that stuff were going big at Batesville, and they'd have the big
Yeah.
10,000 to win races down at Batesville. So they really started changing, and he didn't want to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so with that, how did you do whenever you raced the street stock?
I don't even remember. I finished both the races I ran, but I don't even remember how I did. I was mid pack.
Okay.
Nothing spectacular.
Yeah, not bad enough that it really stuck out. It was just kind of
No, it was just one of those. I was there and I participated and I didn't tear anything up, so it was a win.
There you go. That's perfect. We love to hear that. So
So,
in 2006, then you started working with Brandon McCormick. Am I right on that?
yep.
Okay.
Started helping him some. Brennan kind of made that connection. Bradley sponsored Brandon for a lot of years. So we got to that was kind of my intro to dirt late models. I would just go kind of just hang out and watch and try to learn what I could, and got more and more involved. And at that point, I still didn't know much of anything about dirt late models, but I probably made 5 to 10 races a year for those couple years. That was when I was in college for at Rolla for mechanical engineering. So I didn't have a
Yeah.
lot of time, but we would there was a couple races, especially through the year. They would pick us up on the way through town, and we'd go to like St. Louis and go to Paducah and Peevely, and then drop us off on the way home. Or we would have a have an easy week at college, so then we would go to Lebanon and meet them and go to Monad or something like that on a Sunday before college really got hard. But
Yeah.
um,
Usually from what I've heard for engineering, the last couple of years are just brutal. So,
yeah, and then I was running collegiate track at that point too. So
oh, okay, yeah.
my schedule was,
Jam full.
I'm not really sure looking back how I had time to sleep, but it worked out
Yeah.
okay.
I'm with you there. I
So
worked full time. Well, definitely probably not the same thing, but I worked full time, raced, and did college. So don't know
yep,
how I did that as well. But
yep,
um, now I'm doing that same schedule, but with racing. So, um,
yeah,
but yeah. So I have one of my friends who just graduated college, and he did collegiate baseball, and he could have went minor league, but honestly, what he described pay schedule, it was like, yeah, I could just go work a desk job and have more fun doing that. So
right,
technically with how busy the baseball schedule is, but yeah, he says it was crazy. It's track and field, student athletes and people who work through college, they're definitely another breed. So I
yep.
applaud you for that. That's awesome. And then also working on dirt cars at the same time, that's pretty cool.
Like I said, it
So
wasn't a lot at those early stages, but it was definitely a lot of fun.
yeah, absolutely. And
So
then 2007, Brennan started racing, and while he was going to college too. Am I right on that?
yeah, he was going to college down in Poplar Bluff and had just transferred up to Rolla where I was at. And we had another friend that was up around the St. Louis area that was big into go-kart racing at the time. So
Mhm.
he calls me one day and says, "Hey, I just bought a go-kart. I need your help." And I'm like, with what time are we going to do that?" So, at this point, he was trying to kind of fly under the radar. He didn't want his parents to know he was racing. So he was trying to do it all on his own. But go-kart racing is not cheap compared to a lot of things. So if you're going to
Yeah.
do it right and travel, you can race at the weekly level pretty cheap. But if you're going to start traveling and doing anything like that, it's ridiculously expensive. So, we would work on this thing in the garage on the concrete floor. Didn't have a cart stand, didn't have like hardly any tools. Neither one of us had worked on a whole lot of anything before as
Yeah.
far as to have a tool set. We had what we had in our truck to get us off the side of the road. I'm not really sure what we were supposed to do with that because neither one of us knew anything about cars a whole lot at this point. We were decently mechanically inclined, but as far as
Yeah, actually putting it together.
actually racing, like actually doing something that required some knowledge, we had none
Yeah.
at this point. So luckily we had some pretty good mentors along the way, but yeah, so he raced a couple years, kind of just really on no budget basically.
Yeah.
We would buy he would get us a set of tires used from our friend up in St. Louis, and we would go to Bedrock in Illinois and race on Friday nights, I think. So we would leave early and go up there, race Friday night, and then Midway started racing go-karts on the infield. And so then on Saturday, I think they raced like Saturday afternoons or Saturday evenings. I don't remember. I remember a little bit of both down there, but then we'd race at Midway once in a while. And then, of course, that was way closer to home, so we had to be a lot more careful because mom and dad might find out.
Yeah.
So he uh, he raced for a while until they figured it out, and it wasn't good.
Yeah. What was the fake name of your race under?
Oh, he used several. I can't even remember. Like he Rex Merritt signed in one night under Rex Cars. So he used that one for a little bit. I don't remember. He used a few, but I don't remember what they were.
There you go.
But
So yeah,
like in
Brennan.
Illinois, he just used his name because there wasn't
Yeah,
there wasn't the social media and all that stuff at that point. It
yeah,
was right before, like, you had to have a college email address to even get Facebook
yep,
whenever it first came out. So there was no chance of them getting on Facebook and stumbling across something that they shouldn't at that point. So
yeah. There you go. And got the Brennan Willer t-shirt on, so
yeah,
it should say Rex Cars on it, just
that would be
to
a
make.
that would be a pretty good.
I've that's Brennan got to do a Rex Cars t-shirt. I want to see that happen. That's gonna got to be in one of them.
Yeah,
So, what was because I've heard a little bit of Brennan's karting escapades. What's kind of like the main story that kind of brings to mind whenever you're talking
I
about?
don't know. We so John Shelton and Brennan and Reggie Jackson, we all kind of traveled together once we kind of started drifting away from home. So we actually went to Columbia one night, I think,
Yeah.
and that was where Brennan won his first race.
Yep.
And let's just say that
Yep.
he won a little bit of money, but not near what he spent after that,
Yep.
having a good time. So uh, in our younger years, we definitely were trouble to be around when it came
Yep.
to some of that stuff. But
Yeah. And the
it
thing
uh,
is,
it was all in good fun, and we definitely had a rough morning the next morning after that
yep.
one. But
Yep. So I remember, well, we were talking about it and he was like, yeah, Columbia. And I was like, what? Or we were talking about Columbia bar scene. He was like, yep, I remember my first win. I went, okay, gotta tell me. And so he would do the whole story. It was pretty awesome. So he named some bars that I didn't think he would actually know. So that was
yeah,
pretty great.
yeah, no, there was a wager, and I don't remember if it was Reggie or John, but there was a wager on the first race win, and it definitely cost some people some money after that one. So nothing major because we didn't have much, but
There you go. So, I mean, and also, well, I don't know how much the bar scene was back then, but the bar scene today, it's expensive. So,
oh
I don't
yeah,
doubt
no, it wasn't too crazy.
Yeah,
It was a little inflated, but it wasn't crazy. I can't
yeah.
imagine trying to go through college and spend any money out anymore.
It's because they got parents to pay for it. Don't
Yeah.
blame it. Yeah. The amount of times I've seen daddy's credit card at the bar, it's crazy. So, all right. And then after that, after 2007, you started racing go-karts. Tell me what happened there.
So Brennan got a new cart, and he let me race his old one for a little while. And one of the first bigger races, I say bigger, there wasn't a ton of cars there, but it was at the old County Line Speedway that was over close to Bolivar, and it was right after they built the new one. Because it used to be down there by Snow Bluff, and we spent a lot of nights there with Brennan and John racing, and may have got kicked out of there once or twice, but um, you'll have to ask John about that one.
Okay.
But yeah, so we went, and then that was that fall. So then the next spring, they opened up a new track just down the road, kind of between where Highway 13 is. It kind of was between both sides of Highway 13, where it kind of splits there just outside of Bolivar. And uh, it's the first time I took this kart anywhere big. I'd raced it at Midway a couple times, but like just kind of shaking it down. It wasn't really a, but we went over there and I started on the pole and led every lap, and it was it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was probably one of the fastest go-karts that I ever had. And then I'm gonna throw Brennan under the bus on this one, but we
Hell
were
yeah.
Coke syrup racing at Sedalia, and I got under him, and needless to say, neither one of us finished that night.
Ooh. Yep.
He uh, he stuck me in the tractor tire on the infield, and it bent the left front spindle and bent the frame horn and everything. And that cart was never the same. We tried to have it fixed, but it just never was the same. But
Yeah. Yeah. So you hit the tractor tire. What happened to Brennan that he couldn't finish?
uh, I don't know. He had to have hit the outside wall or something because
Yeah.
Coke syrup is so fast, and it's like there's you're running. I want to say that we were running for sure sub tens, probably in the
Oh,
6 to 7
damn.
range, and you're just going. I mean, it's so fast. So if you miss the groove by just a little bit, like you have room to pass, but there's just no time. Like it was just one of those things that he had no idea I was there. He went to arc the corner down, and by the
Yeah.
time we got to the center, like I was already there, and we just made contact. It was really nothing he could do, but
Yeah. If you, given how fast those speeds are for 6 to 7 second laps, if you've seen like little tiny short track quarter midgets or
yep,
um, like just go-karts in general, you'll know that those you can't react fast enough. And
no,
yeah,
yeah, you're
especially
making
with
four corners in 6 to 7 seconds. Like
yeah.
there's two straightaways involved somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And also the thing is, like 15 seconds for me in a late model is crazy. Like that's insane. And then you also on the simulator, you get racetracks so you go 11 seconds around. That's insane. So
Yeah,
6 to 7 seconds, that is crazy. So
yeah.
especially for newer drivers, I would say
Yeah,
that's
that
insane.
was I'm pretty sure that was the first time that I had raced Coke syrup, and that was like I'd never seen anything like it. Brennan raced it once, but I don't know that I was with him then. But we had our Nerf bars full of lead. Like you'd take three people to pick these things up, and you were still floating the left side, like left side coming off the ground. We'd
Dang,
have 70-80% left side weight seems like, and the left side would still float.
that's insane. Because it's a go-kart, people. It's
Yeah.
not a race car you could pick up one side just by leaning over. That's insane. Especially
Yeah,
with
no, we
70
were
left.
definitely there. There was by the end of the night, we would have so much lead stacked on the left side that I have no idea what we weighed, but we were so far over the minimum weight it didn't matter.
Yeah. Damn, that's insane.
So,
So, from one insane to another insane, then you start working with Tony Jackson Jr. in 2009. How did that come about? And ultimately, where did that lead to?
So that kind of started out, just as friends. I'd seen him race. Uh, his cousin Chris and I are the same age.
Yeah.
So, after we kind of got watching races at I-44 on a semi-regular basis on dirt, um, just got to kind of be friends. I knew Chris from school, but kind of
Mhm.
got to be friends with Tony a little bit, and Brennan kind of made that connection a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
and just watching him and all the success he had, you know, at, at Midway and I-44
Yeah.
and Monette, all the local short tracks, those early stages of his career before he started late model racing even. Um, he was still traveling. He might have had quit traveling pavement racing at that point, but um, yeah, just kind of hanging out, being friends, and ultimately that ended up whenever he went in 2010 to try the NASCAR truck deal. I didn't really have any commitments at home, and I'm like
Yeah.
one of I met the team in Daytona. I went down there with Randy Cordy actually in the beginning of 2010 um, for the Volusia Speed Weeks, and then over to Daytona, and that was the year that Juan Pablo hit the jet dryer
Oh,
and
yep.
McMurray won the 500. So
That those are two separate years.
are they?
Yeah, 2010 was when McMurray won. 2012 was when Juan Pablo hit the jet dryer. It's been 16 years. We'll call it the same year.
It's okay. It's been a while. So, but anyway, I remember
Yeah.
going down there. We went and met the truck team because that's
Yeah.
what Tony was down there for, and I just kind of went to hang out. And I visited with Bobby Daughter and Jason Miller a little bit, and just kind of because we were all there with Tony, and Brennan's like, you need to go down there and just talk to him. So Tony was going down in just before the spring Martinsville race was his first race. So
Yeah.
I went to North Carolina with him and just got to talking. And, with my engineering background, they're like, yeah, I mean,
You can work on the
we'll
car.
hire you, like I'm like, I don't know anything about the NASCAR world at this point, but I've been um at that point I'd been dirt racing for a little while and had some experience working on cars and that sort of thing. So, and with the engineering background,
Mhm.
they're like, yeah, we can do something. So kind of we went to Martinsville and just kind of hung out all weekend and watched Tony and have uh just see what the inner workings of the truck teams and the series, what the whole racetrack experience looks like.
Yeah.
And then after that, I went home and got my bags. And before the next race was at Kansas, I think it was like 2 weeks later. And before the Kansas race, I was living in North Carolina and traveling with the team.
Yeah.
So,
There you go. So, what was that seven race span like? What I mean, obviously, when I went to my first or crewed for my first NASCAR ARCA race, stuff like that, I couldn't believe at like the level, the scale of what it was. What was kind of your moment of wow, this is crazy in terms of the scale compared to like the local stuff?
um, probably just the probably that first race at Martinsville, just being there, seeing the tech process,
Oh yeah. Yep. Mhm.
going through tech. Um, you know, at the Martinsville. it's probably the most intense weekend, just for the fact that
Yeah.
you have to literally unload all of your gear out of the transporter, and the truck series teams like are the haulers are parked up on top of the hill. So you have everything you possibly need on the infield, and your pit stall is your home for the weekend because the cup stuff is all in the garage area.
Yep.
So there's no extra room there. All the haulers are full. And just seeing all that, and you're like, wow, this is crazy.
Yep. And also, the thing is with Martinsville, usually you have a few extra trucks that try to make that race just because it's
Yeah.
short track. So, did he have to race his way on speed, or did it was
He
it
had
going?
plenty of speed to race his way in, but he had that truck was already in, so
Okay.
didn't have to, but he had plenty of speed to be able to get in. Um, so yeah,
Yeah.
then after that, Kansas got to lead a few laps. It was strategy, but it was still fast enough to be in the position to
Lead. Yeah.
lead some laps. Um, and then probably had a, I don't know, I'm probably a little biased, a top five, but for sure a top 10 truck. And then it rained and everything just completely changed. Just wasn't quite as good. And I don't remember where he finished, um, but yeah, there's those. He had there was a few things, that probably hindered most of that time. They were in a transition between
Yeah.
Chevrolets and Toyotas, so they weren't really getting full help from Toyota or Chevrolet at that point. So they were kind of doing some things on their own. Um, so yeah, that definitely made it a little more difficult. The second part of the season, I think he got to run a couple Toyota trucks, and those were okay,
Yeah.
but they weren't full blown Toyota stuff yet. They didn't
Yeah.
go to the pull down, and they didn't go to the shaker rigs, and that all the bigger teams were doing. So we found some things at the racetrack that you just can't be having. Like had a shock bottoming out at Chicago, I think it was either Chicago or Vegas. And for that was one of his first bigger races. Might have been Texas even. I don't remember. Anyway, it was one of the first bigger tracks that he went to outside of Kansas. And he's like, man, this thing's so loose. And they're like, yeah, just drive it. It's like the air will catch you. And he's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I will wreck this thing if it. Well, they come in after the first practice and start gathering all the information, and they're like, oh, that's just shock's bottoming out. So we had to remount the shock. Luckily it was just moving it up, and that made things significantly better. But you wasted basically a whole practice, and for a rookie driver the first time at a bigger place, feeling the arrow and all that stuff, it was pretty tough to overcome some of that stuff.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
I mean, you hear it all the time with like newer drivers. They're always feeling different things. I mean, going from a short track, you don't really feel the air to a big track, you're gonna feel the air. So,
mhm.
learning that, especially without any sim, any stuff like that, I
Yeah,
bet
that
was
was really before that all got big.
yeah,
They were just starting to use some iRacing stuff, but it's nowhere near what
yeah,
we have today.
no. I mean, I can go in the sim right now and practice and feel the air and all that kind of stuff. And
Mhm.
I don't have a race, a big giant race where I'm going to feel the air coming up, but I know I can go do that and feel it. So, not having that, especially, and having the lack of practice definitely hindered
Yeah.
uh, him. So, what was your kind of main role with the team? When you went to the track, what was your main
So
responsibilities?
the first half of the year, I was their race engineer per se. So I was tasked with keeping track of all the adjustments, calculating fuel mileage, getting the numbers. The gas man weighs the gas can, and then you have to calculate all before and after the stop, and then provide the crew chief with accurate fuel data.
Yeah.
Um, and the the motor tuner at that point was also our gas guy. So he was heavily involved with that. He kind of showed me, we had a spreadsheet that calculated all that, that kept track of the yellows. You had to manually enter the yellows because those are different ratios than the and all this is basically done off your practice times, how much fuel you're using during practice. So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes
Yep.
that you don't really get to see or nobody talks about. Like, now I think they run gauges and stuff. I can't keep track of what the latest stuff is,
I
but
can
so
tell
yeah,
you,
I would keep track of all that
we do
stuff.
not narca. We do not narca.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
yeah.
think I think the trucks even have the digital dash and stuff in them now, don't they?
Yeah, yes. Arca, some of them do. Most of the lower budget teams, of course, do not have the digital dashes, but
Yeah.
most, I think, most, if not all, the Truck Series teams have the digital dashes. Yeah. So,
So, we would keep track of every tire is spring rated.
yep,
So we would assist the crew chief with setting that up. So that way we would have our second best set to qualify on. Our worst set was always number two, and then it would get better till the last set of tires we put on was always the best set, to give
yep,
ourselves the best chance to run good at the end of the race.
yeah,
Um, so there's just a lot of little things that it seems, looking back, you're like, man, it wasn't really that much, but at the same time, like, I don't remember just sitting on the pit box and getting to watch the race because there was always something going on. About the time you got where you thought you were caught up, caution would come out. So then you're back to trying to help with strategy and to decide if we're pitting or not, or, ultimately that's the crew chief's call, but you can't always pin that on the crew chief because he's got a million things going on. He's dealing with a unhappy driver at times, trying to figure out what he needs to be uh changes and all that. So,
yeah,
that's where I feel like I really like wrapped my head around is, the last half of the year. I kind of did the same thing with Butch Miller, who I feel like I learned the most about racing in the shortest amount of time from him. Tony's
yeah,
a close second, but um, I just feel like in the 10 races that I got to work with Butch, in the last half of that year, we were part of the time a Spartan Park truck just to keep it up in points. But like when we raced really well. Um,
yeah,
had David Starr drive a few times. Tony raced two or three of his seven were with Butch. Um, and then Butch himself raced, and that was pretty cool. Um, he raced at Indianapolis, one of the hottest races I've ever been in.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, he raced and he actually drove. And whenever I was with Butch, I did all that stuff. Plus, I was the gas man, so went over the wall and got some experience doing that. And so that was I don't know, just that whole year was a very interesting
yeah,
time.
yeah. And I mean, I've crewed for late model teams for years. And when I went to my first ARCA race, it was just incredible at the amount of just things that had to be a certain way. And everyone knew that, oh, you do this, you do that, the paperwork, um, just like the little codes that like, I mean, I don't think it's written down anywhere. You don't see it, but you got
Yep.
to wear. you got to wear pants. You got to wear full jeans or whenever you're working on the car. So little things like that. Just
And
you
it's
don't.
cool what some of the well-oiled teams
Yep.
do because everybody has their job. There's not a lot of communication because when you're in the infield of those big races, you can't hardly hear anything. The radio is dedicated to mostly the driver. So everybody has their job. Everybody's depending on everybody else to do their job without a lot of communication. And it's really cool how it all fits and all the moving pieces work together.
Yeah.
So
And
it's
also, like the different you can if you go to a truck race or go to any kind of race, just sit back and if you're ever in the pits, just sit back and watch one of the top teams just work and just watch them. And
hmm
you'll see, watch different people throughout the day, and each one of them has a very specific job. Each one of them knows exactly what they need to do. Each one of them not really talking a whole lot, but you can see the communication just flow
hmm
from person to person. So those are always really cool to watch. So
Yep.
uh, anything else that you learned about in the 2020 season that you want to touch on? Because obviously, a cool thing that you got to do there.
Um, no, I mean it's just so being in that world is just so invaluable. Like
Yeah,
you can't, if any young guys that don't aren't tied to a certain location that just really want to be involved in racing, like yeah, going to the NASCAR tech school probably helps, especially now, but
yeah,
I know that there's most of those guys out there whenever I was there, none of them went through that. None of them came through that. Just go out and find a team. And most of them, especially at the ARCA and the mid-level truck stuff, would be glad to have an extra set of hands. You may not make a whole lot. They may
might not
not
make
pay
any. You probably
anything,
won't make any.
may not pay anything for a little bit, but you're gonna go to the racetrack, you're gonna learn. And if you're worth your weight, they'll figure out a way to keep you.
Yep.
Or at that point you'll have some experience to be able to move on to some place that you can make a little money.
Yeah. And also to have on your resume, oh yeah, I worked with NASCAR teams. That's
Yeah.
pretty that's pretty dang cool.
Yeah.
And a lot of employers, I mean, they'll see that on your resume and be like, oh, that is an interesting thing. So,
Almost every job interview that I've went to since then, I kind of leave that just because it shows that you can work on a team. It's like
yep.
you can work well under pressure. There's a lot of things there that come with that,
Yeah.
and it, it, I all every job interview, somebody asked me about it, and well, tell me about it. What's it like?
Yeah. And
And they'll skip over most everything else, but they always come to that.
I will say, so I've done a lot of job interviews because I would always go to the mock interviews for school or the um, different interviews anywhere. And I would do a ton of different interviews for a ton of different internships just to learn because obviously feel more comfortable in an interview section. I would say 80% or 75% plus of the conversation would be around the fact that I race or
hmm
that I own a racing team or that I've worked on NASCAR cars. They don't really care about the Mizzou stuff. They don't care about the serving that I've done for years. They don't care about anything else. They want to talk about the racing and that how that's been developed because not only does it show, yes, like you said, working under pressure, working as a team, it's a loud and crazy environment
Yep.
that you have to kind of work in. And also, NASCAR is known for being this party atmosphere for the fans. Not a lot of people talk about the team aspect, and a lot of people want to know that. So,
Right.
uh, yeah, if you're interested in racing, go hit up an ARCA team, one of the local teams. Like I made a post today, or not today, but this week. Club Racing was down people this week, and they would have accepted any kind of help to just be there and kind of support them. Um, so I would highly encourage that as well. Just go try to
Yeah.
seek out teams on
Yep.
that front. So after the North Carolina experiment, you came back to Missouri,
Yep.
and you continue to work for Tony Jackson. What was that kind of experience like now becoming more of a crew chief role on the Tony Jackson racing side?
Yeah, so at that point, Tony was running a little bit of pavement stuff, but most everything we did was on dirt. We would always race. He had a couple customers that he drove for, some on asphalt, but mostly on dirt. So that, after that, I think he realized that the NASCAR game's just 100% a money game, and if you can't find sponsorship to pay for it, that was kind of one of his eye-opening things, that realizing that, at that point in time, Ron Hornaday, Mike Skinner, all them guys, they doesn't matter who they are, they pay to race. Now
Yeah,
they might get at that time, like the international trucks paid for Mike Skinner's $3 million or whatever it was at the time for him to race that truck. But he tried really hard for most of 2011 to try to find somebody to help offset that, and just couldn't. Like it's hard enough to find sponsors, small sponsors for that, but
yeah,
not having that. Well, my dad's owns Menards, or my dad, or my
yep,
cousin, or somebody. There's most of those guys have an in somewhere to be able to get their foot in that next door.
yep,
Once they see you have talent in the truck series, McMurray got started in the Mike Mittler truck, and everybody knew that he didn't have a ton of money, or that truck's not overly fast, but he went out and qualified really well with it and raced really good with it, and then that opened the door to the next couple truck opportunities that he had. Well, then next thing you know, he's filling in for Sterling Marlin and wins his second ever Cup race.
yeah,
So it's all about getting in front of the right people at the right time.
yes,
And after that, he just realized that, he's probably not going to be able to continue to focus large portions of effort on that. So, started seriously dirt racing at that point. And
2011, you came back to Missouri with Tony. What was kind of like that transition back to Missouri and back to or Tony racing back in Missouri? What was that all like?
yeah, so we mostly dirt raced at that point. That's kind of when he started racing Mars full time. And I think at that point he had just gotten a pretty new car from Darrell Lanigan. So that
Yeah.
kind of started that relationship. And we had really good success right off the bat. Like I think we won the first night out at Clarksville. And that was always the first season or first race of the year down in Clarksville, Tennessee. It was always super cold, but I think it was the first night out. It was the so they funny thing about Clarksville is they give you the first night you get the toilet plunger, and the second night it's called the toilet bowl. So then the second night you get the trophy that's got the toilet bowl. The whole toilet is the trophy. So, and one of the victory lane photos is you got to sit on it. So it's kind of just the Clarksville,
Clarksville way.
one of the races that they were known for. So, but yeah, we got the plunger, and then a couple years later, we ended up getting the toilet bowl. So,
Yeah. Where is that trophy at? I gotta ask.
it's still in his. I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen it in a while, but I'm pretty sure it's still in his trophy room there in front of his shop. So I know I think he just sold the shop that he was in whenever they moved to
Yeah.
the shop there in town now. But So I'm pretty sure all that stuff's gonna make its way out to the new shop somewhere, I would say,
That's got to be front
because
and
he's got
center.
some. Yeah, yeah, that there he's got some pretty good ones in there. You know, we got he won a guitar at one of the
Yeah,
rockabilly races that they used to have from comp cams. So
yeah,
we uh we had a lot of success together. So
yeah. I gotta ask, what was kind of like the highlight of, so it was 2011, 2015 that you were the crew chief for TJR, correct?
yep, I think so.
Yeah. So in that time, what was kind of like your like top memory during that time of like and racing?
Probably the most of the 2013 season. I don't even remember how many races we won, but it was a bunch of them.
Yeah,
Easily double digits. But he that year he won the Mars Championship and the MLRA Championship the same year. The only time that I'm aware of that that's even came close to happening. But at that time, they had a few co-sanctioned races, which made those extra tough because you were getting points for both series, you know, leading points in both of them, and
yeah,
just, you know, trying not to have a bad night on one of those nights. But um, there was only we looked at the schedule and there was only a couple races that overlapped through the whole season, and one or the other got rained out. So there was a little bit of luck involved there, but man, we just had those two cars that we had were just really fast. We it was kind of funny. We toted one of them around in the front of the trailer because the one we were racing was so fast, and so we pull it out at um that was at Lakeside, and it was a Lucas Oil race, and had some new car gremlins, but still was like fast time. Started on the front row of the feature, and the power steering pump went out of a brand new car under parade lap, so he didn't even start the race because it would not have been good. But
yeah. Especially
and
very.
we're like, it we've been racing this car that's really fast, and little do we know we had the a faster one in the front of the trailer. So
There you go.
it was those two cars were just really good. So, you know, ran second in the Silver Dollar Nationals that year to Jimmy Owens, and actually passed him with just a few to go. But Jimmy, being the old wise veteran that he is, was able to steal it back. But
Yeah,
that just that whole season was just
yeah,
one you'll never forget.
yeah. That was back when I may be mixing up my nationals races. What that was that at I-80?
That was at I-80. Yep, that
Okay,
was
so yeah,
that was back when they had the like USMTS and the Lucas Oil late models for
yeah.
that race.
And that race, like that track looks crazy to me.
Yeah,
It was, well, I think it's shut down now, but yeah, I-80 was definitely one of those tracks that was that I wanted to race at, but
yeah, no,
I,
that was
yeah,
that track was really cool. Like it raced really good. It was almost too fast early to race good,
yeah,
but by the end of the night, like you could run around the bottom, you could run right around the fence. Like
yep,
if your car was really good, you could momentum the middle. It was just a really cool racetrack.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
So
so winning both MLRA and Mars in the same year was, when was that? 2012, 2013?
that was 13.
13. Okay. And then,
Yep.
so 2015, you ultimately walk away from TJR. I wouldn't say walk away. You uh, went kind of away from the crew chief role, kind of was just a part-time helper from then on. What made you make the decision to kind of step away from being the crew chief of TJR?
Well, by that point, I had um, gotten married
Yeah.
and was thinking about starting a family. Um, So I needed something where I was not gone and not uh, needed as much as racing demands of your time.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that there's not many people out there that are okay with you being gone. I think we raced somewhere between 40 and 60 nights a year,
Yeah.
that stretch of time. So it was just, I still talk to Tony quite often and, I still help him any chance I get, but so there was definitely no bad blood, but I was just at a different point in my life that I needed to do something a little different.
Yeah. So,
So I
yeah.
actually put my engineering degree to work and started working for a small automation company there in Lebanon, and that gave me a little bit of flexibility to help him a little bit. I didn't do a lot. There was several years in there. I stuck closer to I-44 and you know just kind of a helper. I'd help him at the shop once in a while when he needed to mount a seat or something like that. Just so I was still involved, and then but
Yeah.
kind of transitioned away from that full time.
Absolutely. So, with that, I gotta ask, you said you put your engineering degree to work. So what's behind you? I've gotta ask.
So uh, actually, that's a whole bunch of 3D printers.
Okay.
I actually started making deck grommets and some different things for dirt racing. Um, I don't know if I have one handy here, but yeah, just a little bit of 3D printed plastic.
Yeah.
Like this goes up underneath the deck to support the deck under load. So as the air hits the deck, it keeps it supported around the tubes. And there's actually one that goes up on top that's
Yeah.
spread
Okay.
down that to fill that gap. So I started that.
There you go.
About October of last year, so coming up on a year. Um, so if you're in the dirt racing world, check out aeroadvantages.com and see if there's anything that helps.
Yeah. That's pretty dang cool. Because yeah,
So
the deck flexing is definitely I have it flexing in my late model when so I
yeah.
may need to shop online and figure out what I need to get from you. So
So
um
and then just the way the things are anymore, it's just so aero dependent.
yes,
Any amount of air that you can keep on top of the race car to give you more downforce is just a big gain that you can get.
for sure. Yeah. So now obviously working part-time with TJR. Um, what's kind of like your future in racing that you see? What do you want to do in racing going forward?
I don't know. It's more of now. It's more just a family thing. My
Yeah.
father-in-law Jeff races. He's he races open late models. Um, and then I've been racing a little bit in the cash money stuff, and probably going to do some open racing as well once in
Yeah.
a while. But it's just him and I racing in the shop as far as the late model goes. We got my stepson Reese, a kids mod, so I'm working at putting that together. So, it's just kind of we race as a family, and if so, we just kind of see Reese is going to be the big driver of most of that. So, depending on where he goes and what he wants to do, he wants to be Lucas Oil late model racing next year, but he's 11, so
There you go.
he's just started playing football this year, so we're gonna race around football schedule a little bit this year and try to get him in a couple races this fall. He's been racing quarter midgets and go-karts up
There you
up
go.
till now. Had quite a bit of success with that at the local level. So we're gonna try the kids mod thing out. It's basically a full blown Midwest mod
Yeah,
on dirt with a V6 engine in it. So that's a good perfect place for a kid to make that transition from go-karts to quarter midgets up into the full size stuff and just kind of see where that goes. We'll probably race most of a full season next year with that whenever his schedule allows for that, and then Jeff and I will race around that. So,
there you go. Yeah. And then so with you running the cash money stuff, what's been like your highlight racing the cash money stuff?
well, I don't know. Like, there's not been a whole lot. I've had some good heat races. Had some good qualifying. I've won a B feature.
There
I've
you go. Be,
outside
be,
of
be feature banded.
I've always moved forward in the A feature. I've never went backwards. I've
There you
only missed
go.
one race. That was kind of depressing. It's the first race that I'd ever missed in my whole racing career. So,
Yeah,
but it happens. You race long enough.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I just the car was better than me, and I just wasn't very good that night. So I was struggling a little bit, just being way too tight and couldn't get my head around it. And so, but
Yeah,
may try to race a little bit this coming weekend at Springfield and see how that goes. But if not, we'll see when the next one's going to be. But
yeah. That's the best way to think about it. Just race whenever you can and
yep,
do your best you can. So that's awesome to
that's
hear.
right. At this point, I'm never going to go to World of Outlaw Racing or Cash or Lucas Oil Racing. So
Yeah,
I just want to, I might race a couple of those races or something at some point, but I'm too competitive, so I want to be able to make those races where I feel like I have a chance to make the race before I even try to go. Like I just don't want to be a field filler. Well, I went and did it to say it's cool. Like I've been to a lot of the dirt races. I've been to a lot of the races at Eldora, and I've done all that stuff as far as working on cars, crew, and that sort of thing. But if I don't feel like I belong as far as have a chance to make the race, I I just soon go help Jeff or do something different, go help Tony or something
yeah,
and have some success that way.
yeah,
I don't have to drive. I like it. It's fun. It's a new challenge for me, but I'm not hung up on that part of it.
yeah. And so would you ever, I mean, obviously Summer Nationals usually doesn't get a whole lot of cars during the week. I mean, I say a whole lot of cars. They get a full field. So
Yeah.
do you expect maybe like a Summer Nationals at Springfield in your future?
Yeah. I mean, I'll probably run. Once I get a little bit more experience with the cash money stuff, I'll probably venture out into the MLRAs and the comp cams and the Rev series, the Sooner series. There's a lot of
Oh yeah.
Heartland stuff. There's a lot of late model opportunities that kind of fill that gap. That's one thing nice about the late model, especially
Yeah.
on dirt, is there's a lot of that stair stepping that you can that that's as you progress up, you don't necessarily have to go to the Lucas Oil deal or the Outlaws. Those races are hard enough to make on a light car count. But I told my wife, I'm like, I don't ever see me running for points. I'm starting a business and family and all that. It takes a lot. I would just soon let Reese race, and I'll race a few of those races when that time comes.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Summer Nationals deal is intriguing to me just because it's such it's a lot of races in a short amount of time, and for somebody that has a business or something like that, it's a full month away from the business, but it's not it's not every weekend or a lot of weekends away plus travel. you're
Yeah.
just making short drives here and there. So if I ever point ran a full points deal, that would probably be the one, just
Yeah.
for the time aspect of things.
Um, Yeah, so we talked about this last Saturday, or not last Saturday, but a couple Saturdays ago, whenever you came for Bruce Handley night, which was for your dad at I-44. So with that, you came in, we were talking a little bit afterwards, decided to do this podcast. Now we were discussing certain things at I-44 that we want to see happen. And I know kind of something we are very both passionate about. I-44, want to see it continue to stay great. So, what do you think that I-44? Obviously, we are very in support of what Aaron's doing right now, but what do you see kind of like as I-44, what they should do to grow, and what do you what are your ideas on that front?
So, coming from, seeing what it used to be, I think everybody remembers what it used to be.
Yeah,
But those days are not, racing's never going to be like that anymore.
yeah,
Um, even whenever they opened up and ran asphalt in the late 2010s all the way to 15, 16, whenever it kind of started fading off again. But, they always had a big late model crowd. They had 15 late models a night, but they didn't have very many street stocks or they had a few modifieds, they had a few bomber type cars. Um, so the pay structure as far as the racetracks was concerned was always very big, top heavy, because they were paying out all the money to the late models because the field was so deep,
yeah.
and they had a good thing going there, but they never could get any traction with the support divisions. Well, now Aaron's got a great support division, with the Crown Vics
Yeah.
being the biggest class at, 15 to 20 at
More
times.
like
And
more like
then,
more like 20 to 25.
well, that's
I don't
awesome.
I don't see
Like,
it's I don't see when it's been less than 20. That's amazing.
yeah, and so you've got that great beginner class now. Well,
Yep.
now some of those guys need to start trickling up to build the rest of the program out. And, that's what, like, back in the day, you could take a street stock, and when you got done with that, you had top-notch street stock equipment. You could go from street stock to modified or late model stock and use the same engine. Now, it's not going to be what the winners are running with, but you can go and get experience. So you can upgrade your car, get experience next season, upgrade the motor, and then now you're running up front in just, in that progression. Well, now if you go from, the street stock class to, there really is no in between,
Yep.
but from street stock to late model, you might as well just throw everything away and start over.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Um, so there's that chain is a little more difficult to climb, but you've got the interested parties from your Crown Vic class, moving up into your street stock class, and those guys can move up into, farther up into the late models if they want to, and then now you're building some really big momentum to have something long term, because the more cars you get, the more people you get, the more people you get, the better you can pay, the better you can pay, the more cars you can get. It's a big cycle, and it's all got to stay in balance. It's just a big circle. Like,
Yeah.
you can pay more with a bigger crowd. With a bigger crowd comes more cars. It's just kind of, and he's done very good with, keeping the fans engaged and keeping them coming and having things for the kids. And you get the kids involved. Well, now you got the Bandoleros and the Legends coming, and that's a place for them to go race. And now you've really got something to build on.
Yeah. Absolutely. So with that, um, what do you think the best way to close the gap between the late models and the street stocks? I swear I'm not trying to lead you in any kind of way,
No, you're good.
because it definitely
Modified
sounds
is
like
the
I am a little
obvious
bit.
answer,
Yeah.
but that's still there's really no, I don't know that you can really close that gap.
No. Yeah.
There used to be two classes filling that gap, and that was the late model stocks, which were, like basically our late models that we run now with a stock stub like a modified or a street stock would have.
Yeah.
Um, so there was two kind of intermediate classes there, but modifieds all the way across the country are struggling.
Yep. 100%.
Um, I heard somebody mention that, like the tour type modifieds, putting those on the 602 crate motor or something. And I'm like, yeah, that's still not really a bridge. I don't
Yeah,
know what
no,
those
that's not at
cars
all.
cost. I'm not even familiar with the tour type cars, but like maybe that's a something to look into. I know it would be something drastically different for our area, but
Yeah. I
I
don't think
just
the
don't know
area
that.
would support.
Yeah, you got to have something that you can get some support with. So mm,
Yeah.
I think that's basically just another late model type car, that's a fully fabricated suspension and all that stuff, and with that level is just rather expensive. So
Yeah.
I think
And there,
you're, I think you got to build your late model program first
yeah,
before you try to fill that gap.
100% agree there. I think
So
it's more of just, I mean, some people have heard my opinion on it, but it's more of just you got to be able to get those. You got to limit the amount of things you can do to the car. And
yeah.
right now, it's just kind of open, especially with the super late models. So need to
Yep.
limit something, and I think we're all kind of in agreement on that going forward. But
Well, I think, with the open late models, it's no different than is on dirt. When you go to open late models, now your shocks become exponentially expensive.
yep,
Your your motors become exponentially expensive. You got to stay pretty well current on chassis technology, just so your geometry and all that stuff is mostly correct.
yep,
Um, and then you got to have somebody that tests or has some information to help you stay fast. You know, just racing at one place all the time, you might be really fast, but there's a new trend comes along. I remember, whenever we opened I-44 the first time, a lot of guys were on the big bar soft spring type stuff. Well, you get somebody on bump stops and it's, yeah, you go just as fast in a heat race, but by the end of the 30 lap feature, you're a half second difference
yep,
because the cars just don't slow down versus the big bar soft spring stuff. So I think the Big Ten package that we had, that was a great weekly type late model class. Um,
yeah.
because you can only use so much horsepower. You can build whatever motor you want. So, if you keep that side of things open, in my opinion, you can only with the 8-inch tire and the spec shock and the springs that you're supposed to run on the front, you can only hook up so much horsepower. So at some point you're just wasting a bunch of fuel
Yep.
and turning a bunch of money into some noise that is not productive.
Yeah, 100%.
So
And I think you get a good tire limit rule, then of course, well, now the big motor that may work the first night, the
yeah,
it's not going to work the second night if you have a
yep,
strong tire rule. So, yeah, I agree with you on that. Something that you touched on that I am 100% in agreement with, I think every track needs to do, um, is you need to have a race that kind of
yep.
solidifies the track. Um, what was kind of your thoughts about I-44 having that race? What was that?
I
What was
don't
kind of
know.
your thoughts?
Like every track needs some marquee event that
Yep.
is that track's deal. Like Wheatland has the Show Me
Show me.
100. The Springfield Raceway has the Turkey Bowl. Um, on the asphalt side, you got the Winchester 400 at Winchester. You got the All-American 400 at Nashville. You got the Snowball Derby at Five Flags. You got to get something built that is a large caliber event because the to sustain the track week in and week out, if you're able to go make a good chunk of change on those big weekends one time a year, that helps even out your track expenses on the nights that it's 110 outside and the crowd's weak, but your cars still show up.
Yeah.
Well, they got to have some, not every night you're going to make money in the
Nope.
in the racetrack world. Between your expenses, you paying your help and keeping the insurance and the lights on and the general maintenance on the facility, mowing the grass, like everything, it all adds up and it's all expensive. Like
Yeah.
most people don't realize, but I know back in the day, it used to cost $500 just to turn the light switch on the just the lights. That
Yep.
was just to turn the switch on. That's not the electricity costs to turn the lights on all night. That's just to turn it on.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, it's very expensive. So that's you got to have that marquee event, and they had that with the Jegs deal, with that Master of the Pros race that they had. That was like the biggest crate race in the country at the time.
Yep.
And then, we kind of lost traction and the momentum of the racetrack kind of fell off. But that was, to me, that was a good start. But then we got to add, we got to start pulling in there's a ton of them CRA street stocks.
Yeah.
Um, figure out figure out what it takes for our guys to be competitive with those. I have no idea what the street stock rules are. I know they're not
No,
overly
they're not one on
similar,
one. Yeah.
but that's the best thing to happen to dirt late model racing in ages was the unified rule book.
Yep.
That needs to be across the country. You can take an open dirt late model and go anywhere in the country and race it just like it is. Every series, there's some small details, but there's nothing major. Motors are the same, shocks are the same, chassis are the same, tires are the same. They limit on what you can race on what different compounds and all that, but there's only a few of those differences.
Yeah.
You can literally take the same car and go anywhere in the country with it. And to my knowledge, that's one of the few classes that's like that.
Yeah. It's
Super
probably the
late
only.
models on asphalt, they made a big push, and I think that they've got those pretty well the same, and the pro cars also, the crate cars, I think they've done pretty good with that. But they it would help build one of those marquee events if you worked at getting the street stocks where they were more similar to the Jegs cars, and now you can like when you start to build this program those guys, you can bring those guys too because
Yeah.
it takes you look at Five Flags what they've done with the Derby and granted the Derby and the Snowflake are the two biggest races, but they have like 7 or 8 classes that
Yeah.
they race and they have decent car counts in all of them.
Yep.
I think they send cars home in all but just a couple of those
Yeah.
every time,
Yeah. And
you know?
some of those classes you don't even hear, like you wouldn't imagine having them here. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And you don't necessarily like that's one of the things you don't necessarily want. And maybe that's the pro trucks come to mind.
Yep.
Maybe that's the late model class, the bridge that street stock class that you were talking about. You know, maybe that's something that if there's enough interest, you got to get half dozen, in my opinion, of guys that are willing to make that investment
Yeah.
before
Well,
you even get it started.
the thing,
But they run on an 8-inch tire.
yeah.
I think they're stock stub type stuff, but
The thing is, we had like whenever the Big Tens came along, we had a truck that was solid. It was a
yeah,
solid car in the division. So
yep,
I think if we do something where we have a late model on the Big Ten shocks or something similar, I think you're going to
yeah,
get a couple modifieds. I think you're going to get a couple trucks, and I think that's awesome. That's perfect.
yeah,
I think a class where you can have a truck, you can have a modified, and race against a Big Ten late model until we get something where you might have 15 cars a night. Well, maybe we have a truck modified class then. We have a late model class, then kind of separate
yeah,
them. But I think until we get the track fully up, I think we need to have a class where you can have the modified, the pro truck, and the Big Ten all together because they can run together. I mean, we had a modified that raced against us. He was relatively fast. And then we had the truck was relatively fast with the late model stuff. So, and I don't think there's a problem with having a modified race against a late model against a pro truck if it all works out, if it all
yeah.
settles speed.
As long as it's not, I don't know,
Yeah.
it's got to look professional. And
Yes, there's that.
to me, that's the only thing that kind of draws from that. But
Yeah.
uh, to be able to build build a class, I know that you've got some guys, as long as they're aware that it's temporary. Once we get more like this is the direction the class is going, um, and there might be a limited amount of time that you get to continue to participate in that. Then, as long as they're aware of that up front, and you don't lead people into that, because I remember whenever they mixed the late models and the late model stocks towards the end, and it was just bad. Like
Yep.
it didn't work out well.
Yeah.
But that was more of an open late model and more of a stock stub type
Well,
mixing together. Um, so I think if you try to keep it as much their own identity as possible, but if they fit and they race well together, the truck and the late model aren't too far apart.
no.
You could definitely, until you get to half dozen or more of each, keep them together, and they probably race well enough because they did that back with the late model stocks. On the Big Ten package, I don't think it matters.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah,
I think there's definitely some growth period there that I can see some benefit there.
for sure. All right. Well,
So,
I gotta ask. So I like to ask everyone at the end of every podcast, what is your funniest racing memory?
oh, I don't even know.
Because
I thought
everyone's
about
got
this
at
one for
least
a
one
while
that are
since
just it's crazy. Or it's just a little weird.
um I'm gonna say like most I'm gonna pick on Brennan, but he has the
Yes,
he
let's
has
go.
the worst luck.
Yeah.
So like just some of the things that happens to Brennan is like I'm like, how does this even happen? He comes up with new ways to have bad luck on the regular. So that would probably just hanging out with Brennan is probably one of the funniest things that you'll ever do, I promise. Because I know he had a motor failure at, I think it was at Muskogee Outlaw Speedway, not the big track. Um, Going down the back straightaway one night and locked up the rear tires and spun, and he goes like down in this little drainage ditch, and they're telling him over the one way, 3W, tap your roof, you're all right. Well, Tony said he's making laps out there and can't find him because he's down in the ditch. Like it's not deep, but it was just at the right spot where it's dark and his driver's door, the number was about halfway up the dirt, and he's down in this little ditch right there at the edge of the racetrack. And like Tony's looking around for him, he's like, I can't even find him. So we go to the track the next day over at Salina, and he's gonna start changing his motor. Well, when it broke the motor, it locked up the rear tires, and it like seized the transmission shaft to the back of the crank where it bolts onto the crank. It seized that coupler to the transmission shaft, and we literally spent all day trying to change this motor that should have been no big deal.
Yeah.
But we ended up replacing the motor. By the time we got done prying on it and twisting around on it, it needed a new motor plate, but we had to use that one because that was the only reason we just didn't pull it all out and put a new one in all new because we didn't have a spare motor plate. I don't know anybody that takes those to the racetrack, but
Yeah. What the fuck?
I, I, we were poking fun at him and giving him a hard time over it, and then we realized that he really had a problem, and it was it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
But
Damn. That,
yeah,
yeah.
so
Brennan
like
always had,
I don't know that I've
even
ever
this
seen
year,
that
Brennan has
before.
like the worst luck with certain
He's
things.
got the weirdest things happen to Brendan, I promise.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, yeah, I think that was a good one. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that Yvette, that she told us that we need to do one of these. But yeah, I appreciate you coming on, man. Obviously you're still racing, so who do you have to thank to keep you racing right now?
Um, Mostly uh Jeff Roth and all of Roth Motorsports, Roth Cattle Company and the Homes by Roth that he's heavily involved with. Um, but all the people that help us. I'm gonna try to get them all, but I don't know. It's like your first Victory Lane interview. They always never very good because you can't remember them all. But
I still have to look at my car.
um,
Don't worry.
yeah. So Kimmel Mechanical, West Pest Control, Shock Squad Electrical, um, K&J Graphics, Aero Advantages. Um,
I know you're missing a couple.
yeah,
You got to thank your wife.
yeah, yeah. She's probably the biggest supporter because without her, none of this works.
No.
Um, between between her and Reese and Jeff, like I said, we do it as a family, and with three of us racing, and without her, she's definitely the glue that holds this all together. So without her, there's none of this would even be remotely possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, man. I appreciate you talking to us and kind of going through your whole racing background. But there's so many great stories out there that need to be told about racing. So I'm glad we able to tell that story, tell your story. So thank you for coming on, and everyone take care. Have a great night.
all right, thanks.